What we will do now, we will have a short panel with three amazing speakers, four actually. I wasn't sure you were here. Thank you for joining. So, and it will be kind of like a discussion in the form of a discussion. And I'm really, really honored to have these amazing speakers with us today. Dr. Adil, whom you just met, and it was very interesting presentation on Venture Studios, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity and our students to learn more. Also on the panel is Kilian Veer, a partner at Bridgemaker, and previously he was co-founded Medzagona and worked as head digital strategy somewhere in Berlin. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, but it's a pleasure to have you with us. Maher also, I've had the honor to meet him before, and Maher is a visionary leader, seasoned banker for over 29 years. He has extensive experience in board membership in Islamic banking, and in risk management, finance, operations, technology. So again, Maher, welcome on board. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. And last but not least, we have Jazeer, Jamal. He's the founder and CEO of GrowValley Ventures, the region's first and biggest venture studio based in the UAE. So as you can see, I have an amazing lineup of speakers, lucky to be sitting amongst them, really. I want to make this interactive, quick questions, and then I want to open it for the audience to ask their questions, because it's also your opportunity to benefit from this vast experience. Dr. Adil, I'll start with you. I want you to tell me very quickly some of the challenges associated with venture studios, but also some of the challenges of entrepreneurship more generally. You just talked about failure rate, 9 out of 10 ideas are going to fail, you know? So I want our students to really understand a little bit more about success, failure, opportunities in this space, and about the challenges of venture studios. So let me start with you, please. Being a serial entrepreneur, I think you can answer this question comfortably.
Do you have 6 hours, guys?
No.
Okay, you don't have 6 hours.
We have 2 minutes.
So as with regards to venture studios, naturally the challenge, the main challenge becomes the team that is entrusted to identify ideas, execute on those ideas, be very vigilant about the process of doubling up on an idea or shutting down an idea. And then, of course, when it comes to monetizing these businesses, that also becomes a challenge. So first of all, getting the right team that is able to do that efficiently and has the self-discipline and has the capabilities of doing all of that is naturally a challenge. It takes years to develop really competent teams to do this. The second challenge with the venture studios is definitely having the needed funding to make sure that they arrive to their ultimate objective. And the third is for being in a market that can make it interesting to monetize these ideas. So these are the challenges that a venture studio, and I think Kilian here is more competent than me and Jazeer in identifying even further them being operators of venture studios also. When it comes to entrepreneurship, there are a lot of challenges, but let me start by saying which context do you fall in makes a huge difference. Which area are you in? Which society are you trying to serve? The geopolitical issues you are facing, the economy, the market, demand and supply, the ability to monetize ideas, the valuations you can get within the market you serve are all key concerns. When it comes to the concept of failure and success, to get used to it takes a long time. You think this idea is the next greatest idea in the world. You put a lot of heart and effort and sweat. and it does not kick start, and you think everybody's stupid but you. So to realize that no, actually the product is just probably at times ahead of the market, or is not promoted properly, or it's just not the product for the market. Or you would not find that even if it is successful, there's not much interest of others buying your business at a good value, so that you can make money at the end and then move to the next ideas.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think this is very valuable for our students. Not the first idea will not automatically succeed. You have to get used to the concept of failure, bouncing back, standing up, trying again, and having an amazing team around you. Kilian, moving to you, maybe you want to introduce yourself really briefly, but also tell us about how you identify the right startups that you want to invest in that will have growth prospects. What are the key factors? So maybe we can start with that.
Okay, so brief introduction. I'm Kilian. I'm a partner with Bridgemaker. We are venture builders, so our job is to create these venture studios or to do venture building as a service for big corporates, especially family businesses. That's what we specialize in. I have a background as an entrepreneur. I co-founded, so I'm a great believer in teams as well, with two other guys, the world's largest biotech marketplace, Agino. And before that, I worked for a family business, or it used to be a family business. Now it's a publicly listed Kaizen biotechnology space. Was the head of digital transformation there. And before that, I was the typical strategic consultant until I knew what I wanted to do with my life. Great. So amazing journey. So how do you identify the right startups? How do you do that? Yeah. So it's probably the most difficult question. So I agree with what Dr. Adil said about it all starts with a team, at least in a venture studio it does. So once you have the team and once you have identified the capabilities within the team, then what we do is we use a very stringent, very straightforward methodology that is really doubling down on the process of failing fast. What we try to do is to identify the 9 startups that will fail. So in the end, the one that probably does not fail remains. So setting up a process to do that as quickly as possible, that's to us the best recipe in doing that. Now, the other part that is very important is now with the venture studio, there's one thing very different from, in my humble opinion, from a typical startup studio, because a venture studio seeks the collaboration between the entrepreneur and the investing business, so the family business or the corporate business or the governmental institution or whoever. Now, here to be really successful, you need 2 things. One is the entrepreneurial opportunity. Difficult enough because you have to identify the 9 that fail, so 1 remains. Now, what you have to do then is with the remaining ideas, because usually it's not just 1, it's rather 3, because you're looking at 30 ideas and then 27 fall out. Of those 3, you try to identify the one that fits best to the corporate strategy that you're working with. Because in the end, you're seeking collaboration. You're seeking investment from a corporate, not just in money, but also in time and in their assets. And to make them leverage their assets, they really need to have a fit. And this is what we look at very early on as well. So it's the entrepreneurial opportunity to get to the 1 startup and then in there seek for the corporate fit. Very nice. So like push them to fail fast, yes, so that you identify the right startup to invest in and then working on the fit. Amazing. Moving on to Maher. Maher, it's a pleasure having you. I know that you work a lot with family businesses. You're on the board of governance for several businesses. And my question to you, should a family business engage with a venture studio? And specifically here in the UAE, would you recommend that?
Sure. Actually, just a disclaimer. I thought after the keynote of Dr. Adil that we would not really require anything to be said, but nevertheless, you've kind of covered it all, to be honest with you. So let's elaborate on that thing. But I think it's in some of the stats, but we're aligned, to be honest with you. I think probably we're reading all the same stats over here, with mindful being correct or not. I think before answering the question, it's important to understand the context of the family offices as well. As the stats were mentioned by the Dean of Communication and Dr. Adil, globally, family offices constitute anything between 50 to 70% of global GDP. If global GDP is around $85 trillion, give and take, you're talking about anything between 52 to 70 trillion dollars of family offices. So it is the actually essential building block of an economy. And that will allude to the answer of the question later on. If you come back to UAE, the numbers are even more staggering. So 90% of the GDP of UAE is actually coming in from family offices. So it's very, very strong, very fundamental for the success of the economy over here. When you speak to the business owners, there was a KPMG survey carried out some years back, 5 years ago. I think hopefully the stats has improved. They realized that around 90% of family owners believed in getting the next generation prepared. But unfortunately, only 27% took any action or did anything about it. And that's why it's important. So how do we make sure that the next generation is prepared for the next, which is coming up? Now, what is there in the mind of the family offices owners is how do I pass on the business? But unfortunately, what you require is much more than that. You require a strategy in place, you've tried an education system in place for them so they can be enticed and be part of the process. So coming back to Venture Studios is one such avenue where you actually can prepare the next generation to where you can make sure the legacy and continuation of the generation of the family offices continues. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for them to happen. I'm more realistic. I think Dr. Adil said he's optimistic about how the family offices are rising, which is the fact, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, if you look at the number of family offices which does not really survive the third generation, it's really high. So what I wanted to say, only 14% makes it to the third generation in GCC. And that hopefully need to change with one of the avenues of Venture Studios. So Venture Studios, to define it again for simplification, either these people who have actually seen companies and they founded companies in the past. So they have the experience, what to do, what not to do. So they come together and collaborate and provide you that experience. So when we take the family businesses and engage with them, the success rate becomes really, really higher for you to make it happen. So it's very critical and important, yes, for the family offices to get engaged with them. And the question part of it, whether it should be internally, externally, depending on the family business's preparedness. So if you're a family office which is very large, has very good governance, and you're able to make it internally, do it, because some family offices have done that. So what they've done, they created their own startups, but what they have done, they have allocated the people, the talent, and isolated them from the company and the rigid mind force of the corporation so they can think differently. In my previous organization, we did that. We wanted to create an organization for the millennials. But if you would have stuck with the corporate mind, that would not be possible. So we created a separate company almost headed by a millennial. The entire team was for millennial to come up with a company for millennials. And it has been so successful that the industry started triplicating the model we came up with. So it's important for family offices to choose whether it's internal or external, depending on their preparedness. So from my humble advice, what I see, externally, it's much more viable.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Very interesting, and especially in the context of the region, very good insights. Turning to Jazeer, and I want to ask you, Jazeer, thank you for being with us. And now we hear about incubators, accelerators, and now the latest is the Venture Studio. So is this a fad? Is this something that is really significantly better? How is it different from incubators and accelerators? Can you speak to us about this? Because I think it's the first time our students are hearing about Venture Studios. Most likely they have heard about accelerators, incubators, but we want to learn more about the differences, nuanced differences from you, please.
Firstly, thank you for having me here. This is the most common question I get to hear from founders, investors, institutions, organizations, that you name it, whoever it is. I mean, how different are you from accelerators or incubators? It's a very, very common question. Based on the 3 years of experience, I say the difference of 4. One is leadership, and the second is skin in the game. third is frugality, and fourth is the speed. Going back to the first thing, is leadership is very, very important when it comes to startup studios. That means nobody can walk this game unless you have walked it past. That means you cannot just go to university and just come back and start building here, because this has to be done and led by experienced entrepreneurs. Someone who's failed multiple times, somebody who's got exit, somebody who's raised capital, somebody who knows to hire people, somebody who knows how to identify the ideas, and so on. And the second, the most important thing is the frugality, which is very, very important, that how fast you can build an idea and how frugally, with the lowest amount of investment required for you to build and launch ideas. And this is something very, very, very common mistake made by first-time founders, even family offices. I've seen family offices spending stupendous money on startups when I was like, what are you doing with this kind of money? I mean, you could do like a quarter of that and build a successful venture and test your ideas fast. And the speed is a very, very important thing, because it's really, really, the speed makes a big difference when it comes to a startup studios. Because a lot of things is that you only realize a startup, an idea really works on it after you spend like 2 or 3 years on the idea. While in our case, it can be as low as 16 weeks. So there are ideas that we scrapped in 4 weeks' time. And because that's the kind of process that we have built in, that to figure out if this idea is going to work or not. So that's the key differentiator. And well, I can speak on this a little bit more deeper as well. But then, you know, I would love to have you guys on a forum with us, which we're actually conducting from next week.
Okay, I'm going to make this interesting. Wrap up by asking each of our speakers to give advice to our students in relation to entrepreneurship, if they want to be future entrepreneurs or successful in their employment. What kind of advice can you give them? Because you all have extensive industry experience, and I want to tailor it to them. And then to everybody in the audience, you will have the opportunity to ask any questions. So if you start preparing your questions, so after we wrap up with this round, it's your opportunity to ask any questions you want to our speakers. So Dr. Adil, let me start with you. What would you advise our students about if they want to be future entrepreneurs? What are the skills? What is the mindset that they need to have? What do they need to learn along the way? You know, what advice?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Learn how to build a business plan. A lot of people just get an idea and they get stuck with the idea and they start promoting the idea. But what they don't have in hand is building a business, it's a business plan. Now, building a business plan, don't outsource it to somebody in Fiverr. Do it yourself, because simply by building your own business plan, you will have to force yourself to become a strategist, to become a finance accounting person, to become a marketeer, to become a salesperson, to become a communication person, to become a project manager, to become a leader. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you need to have these skills grown in you. They don't have to be perfect, but at least you need to recognize the skill sets that you need to build a business. So first of all, I would suggest highly that you do your business plan and you live each and every character there is in a company. The manager, the project manager, the marketeer, the sales guy, the finance guy, the accountant, you have to live them a bit, at least take a flavor. The second thing, and I'll only mention two and leave the rest to the team. The second thing is that you need to know how to build a team. You need to be able to identify the right project manager, the right marketeer, the right sales guy, the right engineer, the right media person, the right technologist. You need to be able to identify people that have these kind of skills. So you need to always look around for people that know how to do things and be able to communicate with them and attract them to your idea. The more ready you are, the easier it is for you to attract these other people into your idea. This is why what I refer to as being able to identify a problem and build a team around the problem, a problem or an opportunity, and build a team around it, because these to me are the basic ingredients for a company to exist and have a better chance in success. You might have realized there was the slide on why do companies fail. So you need to do the opposite of what that says. Yeah, they don't market well. You need to find the right person that does marketing. If they don't, sell well, you have to find the person that knows how to sell, and so on and so forth.
Very, very nice. Love it. Okay, over to you, Kilian. Advice to our students who want to be future entrepreneurs or successful in business in general.
So in the end, after your university, get your hat out of the book, go out there and just do it. I just said 9 out of 10 startups fail. So our mission is to identify the 9 as quickly as possible to find the one that is remaining and it's going to be successful. So basically go out there today, fail the first time, do it 8 more times and then be successful. And maybe if you're lucky on the way, you're a bit quicker and maybe your 3rd one is already successful. But start doing it now. Don't waste time. Speed is of the essence. And then you're going to be there.
Excellent. Love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Kilian. Over to you, Maher. Your advice.
I'll advise you the same that I've advised my son. He came to me a month ago. He's finishing his high school. He's getting to university and he's telling me, look, I want to be a software engineer like yourself. I said, why you want to be a software engineer? What are you going to achieve with that? What are you going to solve the problem with? And then he said, because I want to be a businessman. I said, how is it linked? So he explained that to me. Just remember one thing, you're living in a very important era. I think Brother Adil has mentioned the stat, which was very staggering. 40% of those who are graduating today will need to be entrepreneurs. So you need to start thinking from now on. For my humble advice, the thought process should have started earlier on, which I'm trying to seed into my son's idea. The most important thing is think from now, what is it that you want to solve? I always believe in don't just start a business for sake of starting a business. Don't replicate and copycat, although nothing wrong with that, but trying to find what is that something we need to do and change where it's helped the world. It will bring, or about, innovation is about change. So probably some of us, when they heard the word innovation, they get, held back and saying oh, this is a very difficult thing to do. Innovation means change. So you change what is happening today where you can better the human life. That's my always I think about. Whatever I do is how you do think and help the people around it. So think about what is it that you're going to help with around. And trust me that the talent that you have today, it's amazing. You got access to information that we never had in our era time. We had to go and source for books. If you want to know how NASA works today, it's on the Google, by the way. So if you want to start up anything, it's on Google. Apart from, of course, seeking advice from experts. So again, a key message, change what do you think it will help the humanity in terms of advancement. And that would be something you really hit it correctly in that case.
I love it. Yes. So a business with a purpose. Try to have a purpose and build your business around it. Okay, over to you, Jazeer.
I think I'm going to sound like a bad guy because I'm very non-conventional. The way I think is to be focused on objective and not being subjective. I mean, if you joined a university for graduating in accounting, financial, business, whatever it is, you don't have to wait until you get to last year or you graduate to find your passion or finding the next best idea you need to launch. If you figure that out in the first semester, drop out. Go run behind it. So the biggest thing that you need to learn is to execute. It's very, very, very important that a lot of people don't get the skills. Most smartest people on this earth are not the people who are the most intelligent or had the most number of money or they knew the best of planning skills. They're people who knew how to execute things. There are people who can persuade others to come and join them. There are people who know how to persuade people to come and work with them. There are people who can persuade to get the money that they want. It's very, very important to get that. So it's really, really important to be objective. At the end of the day, you guys are trying to build a career to be what? To be having the financial freedom, to have the ability to buy your next favorite car, to buy, go for the next specification that you're looking for, everything that you're looking at. You don't have to wait until you graduate. You could do that in the very first semester. So be objective. That's one. The second thing is that a lot of people have this misunderstanding that, you got to be, for you to be an entrepreneur, you got to be doing your business. you can be entrepreneur in every part of your life. That means you can be an entrepreneur even when you work in a company. The way you be an entrepreneur is being proactively solving a problem that's within your organization. Or you could be a person that finds a problem and build a venture out of it. In whatever it is, entrepreneurship is a mindset. And I think that should not be just relying on the 40% who's going to be self-employed. I think 100% of the people who are sitting in this room need to understand entrepreneurship is a mindset. And if you have that, I think you're not going to wait for somebody to solve your problem. You will solve your own problem. Thank you.
Okay, totally agree about entrepreneurship as a mindset. Do not agree about dropping out, even if you find your passion. Finish your degree. Although some of the most successful business people are, university dropout, but we want you to finish and get your degree in hand. I'm gonna leave it just here. So that we don't take much longer. We're like interesting, intense panel, but I want to leave the floor open for some questions. Anybody who may have a question from the students, from the faculty, let's start. Yes. Thank you. We're listening.
All right, so I'm a EOS alumni. I'm in the venture building space. And my question is to you, Maher. So the validating ideas, a funnel of ideas at the venture studio level is expensive, which makes it a risky asset class, especially for family offices. So how do we increase the confidence of family offices in the UAE to adopt, invest, and be a part of venture studios, the venture building space? The same goes to Kilian. At the corporate level, it's the same thing, right? So you go with a few cohorts initially. If you have a very low rate of spinning out or actually developing something, you lose sort of stakeholder confidence, and you obviously don't have the right to play. So how do you sort of solve for that, both at the family office and the corporate level? Thanks.
You're Nabil?
Yeah, Nabil.
Okay, nice to meet you. Okay.
I think for the family offices, first of all, venture studios are, I wouldn't say it's risk-free, it's a safer bet for the family offices to actually, establish and work around with them, rather than establishing, working with the existing venture studios, because they bring the experience over there. Two things I always believe when you actually take the next generation to the venture studios, you'll bring out quite a lot of traits, a lot of learnings from there. But the two important ones, and one of them, which is Dubai, is very good about it, which I learned it immediately when I was in college. How do you get things done very quickly? We can all have visionary ideas, missions, stuff like that. How do you execute? When the rubber meets the road, that's what we used to say, and doing exactly what Jazeer as well said. It's all about execution. Second, it's about DNA change and culture change. When you're in a family office, you have a different culture. When you're in a government, you have a different culture. When you're in a corporation, it's a different culture. So to change that culture, it's important that you see what's happening with the venture studios. I'm not saying the venture studio is the best of getting things done, but they've got amalgamated a lot of experiences of what they have done in the past in terms of building up a lot of companies, finding many things, going through the motion of what is right, what is wrong, and what can be done correctly. So there's have a speed of getting things done. So it's very important for family offices to engage with them and make that happen.
I got a bit of correction here. You said that it's expensive to work with venture builders. So I've been in the venture building space in the last 17 years. What I did is build ventures for government. So I built PPPs, private public ventures, for Saudi Arabian government, Qatar government, UAE government, many of the governments in the past. Now, my experience comes from building big ventures, and I came to small. So I downsized myself, building startups right now. Now, based on my experience, what I saw is that it's never expensive in terms of time, investment, or effort when it comes to venture studios. It's actually the opposite. The kind of time that you put, or the money that you put in building ventures by yourself is far more expensive than actually going to venture studios. So it's not really, it's actually the opposite. So just to give you a complimentary answer to that is that it's also, I would say, like the most hassle-free way of launching ventures. So if a family business wants to test an idea if it's going to work, instead of them hiring the whole team, putting up a team, putting up the money, hiring, setting up your legal structure and everything, just hire a venture building team, trust that the idea is going to work. If it doesn't work, 12 weeks, shut it down. Game closed, and you move to the next one. And if it works, then you set your own team. Then you increase your capital. So it really works the opposite. So venture studio is a really proven process. Now, I actually unlearned myself from being a corporate to become a startup. So I really had to do, I did a post like few days ago that, I read 57 books. I did 17 courses just for me to unlearn from being a corporate to become a startup. It's very difficult. But then when you learn it, it's actually the most frugal way of building ventures. And it's really, really, really sustainable model. And really the most easiest way to launch ventures. So it's, I just want to correct you on that. Thanks.
Yeah, just to add to that. So basically what you mentioned is great, which basically if the family office is your client, your return on your initial dollar invested is much higher as opposed to when you go and start a business. My question was more on the venture studio as an asset class. So if a family office would invest in a single entity venture studio as opposed to the dual entity where you're attached to a fund. So, but yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Maher.
The corporate perspective is a little different because corporates tend to think in 5-year plans, and then leadership changes and all of things changes. Now, with the family business, yes, they tend to think in longer terms. So maybe it's easier. This is why we love to work with family businesses, because they double down on good opportunities. Now, in a corporate situation, a venture studio or venture building is very often, unfortunately, compared to other 5-year term investments that are internal, that just thinking about 5 years probably have a higher yield, and you will never compare to that. Now, the only way to answer to that is to do a couple of things. The first would be understand the risk assessment of the corporate that you're working with. So how willing are they to take risk and adopt to that? So maybe you understand that for a certain corporate, unicorns are not an option. So you think in smaller business cases that on a 5-year plan, they will have maybe already a break even, which is not very common in most of startups, but then now there's a certain class of business models that you should focus on, because those are the only ones, like service models, that can be break even within 5 years. Show a 5-year investment plan that is comparable to other investments within the company. And then the last one, and that's probably the most important one, you will have one chance. And you will have to make it a success. You will have to make it a lighthouse, shining example of that venture building, venture studios can be successful. Now, in that case, use the methodology to assess, make sure that you filter out all the nonsense. So the one opportunity, the low-hanging fruit for a 5-year plan, lower risk, it's not going to be no risk, but lower risk, that remains. And then, very important, last step, make the leadership of the corporate feel it's their baby, involve them in the creation process of said venture. Because what happens then, it's, as you said in the beginning, it's emotional money. Now, even for a corporate, for the leadership, it becomes emotional. It's their idea, it cannot fail. And now you're in a good position, make it a lighthouse and then double down on that success.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Please go ahead. You can pass the mic. Yes.
Hi, my name is Rishabh. I had a question about venture studios. So I was wondering, it was mentioned earlier that startups traditionally have a failure rate of about 90%. So I was wondering how working with a venture studio or a startup studio can help lower that failure rate for us as a young founder.
Okay, so maybe to counter with a stat. So to counter with a stat, so we continuously measure the success rate of our ventures in various different stages. Now, I would be as bold to say that 70% of what goes through that process in a good venture studio is likely to become a success. So it's very high. How does that happen? It's the methodology, as I said earlier. Make sure you fail fast. So it's not like we don't fail along the process. We fail plenty of times. We fail at least 9 times. We create 30 ideas, 27 of them are rubbish. 3 are good, 1 is chosen. And then that one idea is just that. It's a value promise, it's an idea. What we do then is we start going out there. We start creating a business, and then we do tons of pivots. Maybe we start with a service model, later it's a platform model, but the core idea remains the same. The value promise, the target group remains the same, but those pivots are very important. So don't be afraid to understand that you have failed. Just understand how to solve the failure. And then in the end, it becomes a success.
Okay. So a couple of notes. So you see 3, I'm the youngest guy of all. The reason why we are, most of us are above 40, and we are talking about venture studios is because we've tried all of the other concepts. So we've invested in startups, we've done accelerators, we've done incubators. It's not that we haven't, and we've arrived to, after getting beaten so many times, to an understanding that the venture studio model is better value for your money and time at this point in time. So this is why we are talking about venture studios. Because, you know, we've, as Adil, I've lived the era of investing in those multi-billion-dollar companies that are 3 people, and you don't understand why is it multi-billion-dollar, and you, like 1,000 people around you say, well, this is a great idea, and they put money in it, and you still don't understand why is it valued at $1 billion. But then you are like, you know, if all of them are right, why am I wrong? Would I be wrong? So you get driven, and we've been through this. We've had those ideas that we thought will sell for $1 billion and they sold for 100,000 dirhams. Like, you know, we've been through this till you realize that, you know, whatever is not logical, don't double up on, don't get too driven by what others are saying about it. Let it be very touchable. Yeah. So that's one. When it comes to success and failure within venture studios, I think Kilian covered it, and I think everybody would say something about. You also need to understand what success means. What's the definition of success? If I am to grow a company and it makes me double the money in 3 years or 4 years' time, is this double my investment? Is this success? If this is success to you, then it is success. You understand me? It doesn't need to be $1 billion business. You spend $100,000 on it in 3-4 years' time, 5 years' time, it's $200,000. You made 2 times in 5 years, that's 20% IRR. 20%, are you happy with it? Is this success? If it is yes, then it is success. You understand me? So the definition of what is success. And in the concept of venture studios, and especially, there is so if you failed 9 times, you know 9 times, or you know 9 businesses that you do not want to do. That is success, by the way. You understand me? The 9 things, because there will be a lot of people around you asking you, oh, you know what, I'm so excited about this idea. And you instantly would say, no, it's a bad idea. Why is that? Because you've tried it. You understand me? So the fact that you were able to say no, like instantly, it has value. Because he would have spent 2 years to figure out that it's not a good idea. You knew it instantly because you went through it as an idea.
The advantage of venture studios, come back to it again. I think the process they go through in terms of validating the idea, testing the idea to see whether this is going to be workable or not is pretty quick. So when you start a business yourself, there's nobody around you. So you've collected a team, but probably they don't have the experience most of the time. unless you're at very old age and you've tried a lot of things. So it takes you a longer time. Hopefully it's successful, but if we go with the math and the stats of 9 out of 10 is going to be failure, so that's mean you're going to take a longer time to fail. As Jazeer has mentioned, what does Venture Studio do? They have the talent available, they take their idea, they test it, they validate it. And if this idea is workable, then they put it to the market, they fund it, put the resources around it, and they create an MVP behind the whole things. So the success of making it happen will be much faster then, and it's a shorter journey. Something can be done in a couple of weeks, couple of months, and it's done. Vis-a-vis you spending a year or 2 years before you realize, it has not succeeded. I myself founded up a couple of companies with a lot of people. We did not really succeed in them. So that was a learning for us. So now we know what to do, what not to do. Now we are in a third company, a fourth company, and hopefully that will work because of the learning we have come up with it.
Amazing. Jazeer.
I'm assuming your question is that you're an external startup and you approach Venture Studio to help you out. Am I correct? Okay. First of all, the thesis of Venture Studio is very different. Most of the ideas that is actually built on a Venture Studio is in the house. So if it's a founder, he comes in the house and he builds it. Usually they never go invest outside. So that's the first part. The second, let's say you're part of the game. Now, you got to believe this is true. Now, one of the things that I mentioned before that, what's the difference between venture studios and incubators and accelerators is something which called the skin in the game and leadership. Now, when you go to incubators or accelerators, they never put the skin in the game. It's just classroom, academic, getting a mentorship session, opening a few doors. That's it. And then it's like teaching kids to swim in the swimming pool and leaving them in the ocean. It doesn't work in venture studio. We swim with you. Do you understand? Until you get to the shore. That's what the difference is. That's number one. Number two is that I know it's very, difficult for a lot of people, but the reality is that in venture studios, because you work with people who are experienced entrepreneurs, you get unfair advantage. You will be able to see people that you will never be able to see, even if you knocked at their doors for 2 years, because we know the people, because we are older than you. We know people, we know where the money is. We know where the idea can be validated first. If you're an ed tech and you want to know how to validate, we'll connect you with 2 schools. You got 1,000 students like that. You don't need to go to Instagram or Facebook because we know the people. You see, I know Adil, I knew ed tech. I'll go to school, get 1,000 students of his ideas validated. I didn't put a single buck in Facebook. Why? Because you knew me. That's a venture studio. That's really the advantage. And if you know that, and that's what venture studio really makes a big difference between incubators and accelerators. I hope I answered the question.
Couldn't be answered better than this. Thank you. Last question. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ibrahim. I have a similar question that what are the things that third and fourth generation must be aware in their family business and the GCC region?
Dr. Adil, that's you.
Thank you very much. I have a book which I'll happily hand you called Sustaining Family Offices. Do we have copies of the book? So just make them ready. So whoever is interested in sustaining family offices, there is a book that I'll happily hand over. About family offices, just look, I won't spend a lot of energy. Third and fourth generation. What I always advocate for family offices is A, be positive. B, when it comes to next generation, I always call it a democracy. If you want to be involved in your family office and your family business, you want to be the next generation that takes over, you need to know how to bring people together within your family. Don't take it for granted that because you are the oldest son or the son of the current patriarch of the business, that it will come to you. In fact, I would discourage that even if you are the eldest son of the current, discourage that you position yourself, because it's such a huge responsibility and you do not want to be tagged with a failure because you might not be the best one to lead on a business. So be open-minded about the subject. It's a democracy. You have to sell yourself to the rest of the family. Don't take it for granted that you are the boy, the oldest brother, like in our culture. that it is a right. In fact, this will let people around you not want you to be in that position because they don't feel that this is fair. So to be fair, treat it as a democracy. You need to get them to buy into you. Number one. So communication and the trust that you reflect around your family, that it is a democracy and it's a collective decision, is very important, number one. Second thing is prove yourself as to be the best money manager there is in the family. It's not about how smart you are and how creative you are about creating new companies and those great ideas. It's about being able to make sure they receive their money every 6 months. Every 3 months, they receive some money. Because then they see that you care for their money, not for your money, and you are not jeopardizing their money and playing with it. So be very vigilant and be very efficient about using their money, and make sure that you know how to manage money. Managing money is such a difficult skill at these times. I've always been a difficult skill, but more so now than ever. Do 70% of what you need to do needs to be seriously boring, like dead boring. You don't want to do that. And only play with your 5-10% of your money and be very creative about it and like doing stuff. This is why even within venture studios, I always advocate that a family do not put more than 5 to 10% of their wealth in these new setups. Yeah, 70% of their money, 80% of their money needs to be in really boring businesses that make yield every 3 months, and you distribute your family because they look up to you as securing their income for them and for their kids moving forward. So this is a very important thing. Anybody wants to come in?
I just want to add something. Jazeer, you have to add. Go ahead.
Adil, you missed out one point, that you have to be Alzarooni to be a good money manager. See, he had the unfair advantage of being the Alzarooni. So this is beautiful. So, well, one of the things that I faced in my family business when I joined, I dropped out after 4 months of being with my dad. I think the most important thing, like how he said, is a connection. I think it's very difficult to establish the connection unless, very difficult to impress them with an idea, or even if you have the great money managing skills. The problem with the upper generation, not necessarily understand the lower generation, it's probably most of the times is lack of connection. It's because how your relationship has been the last many years of the last generation, and that really makes a big difference. So I think a lot of this is to do with the bonding. That's the first thing. I'm not talking about the innovation part or the investment part. That may or may not happen, but at least the upper generation listens to you. That's the most important. If they don't listen to you, you don't get to the second step anyway. So what's your relationship with the upper generation? That's what really matters, how you're going to take it forward. And that's why a lot of family business fails, because they lack connection. The upper generation has been super busy with their own world, and the next generation doesn't even know. They just see them as celebrating in the house. If that's the case, I don't think the fourth generation is going to be with them. It's going to be walk out. They're going to be investing somewhere else. So I think if you find that gap in your family business, I think you can take the initiative of walking towards them if they never walk to you, because that's probably one of the first thing to do, rather than, then additional step that what he said. This is my point.
Yeah, so I think you're saying similar things. Basically, you need to rally support of your family around you and earn their respect and earn credibility in their eyes. And this is not something that they will give you. This is something that you need to work to earn, that you're credible and you can be trusted. I think this is what I get from these two amazing gentlemen. Kilian, you want to add?
I'm from a country that has been through this years back. And now we're years into the future in terms of how to manage family businesses. And I just want to give 1 or 2 pitfalls that a lot of family businesses in Germany have made. First, there is a point in time where family needs to make a decision. Do we want to lead the business in an operational way? So do we want to have a CEO that is from the family? Or do we want to step back because we realize that we cannot do this forever? So if you step back, then you create a family office that is just taking care of managing the money, but someone else is stepping in and is leading the business operationally, right? Now, then there's a second stepping stone. There's even the point in time where you realize that your family is not going to manage the family office any longer. So you get in someone to do that. Now, understanding that progression is natural because you cannot force your children to take over the business. They will take their own decisions eventually. And realizing that, taking the right measures in the right periods of time is very important. The other part is, if you want to be part of the operational management of a company or the operational management of a family office, you need to be prepared for that. That means two things. One is to know the company inside out. And this is what Germans have been very great at, forcing their children go to every step of the company, every management position. There's just one little downside of that. When you do that, working your ladder up in the company, what are you in the end? You're a manager, you're a middle manager. You're great at sustaining the business. You're not great at leading the business into the future. So there's the other part, making sure that they have an entrepreneurial mindset. And this is where actually venture building is a great tool. A venture studio could be a great tool for the next generation to learn how to be an entrepreneur. So combine these two things. And in Germany, a lot of families made a lot of mistakes not doing that.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll just try to echo and link some of the 2 points being mentioned by Jazeer and what he called Kilian. And very important thing, entrepreneurial mind, you don't need to have a business to be entrepreneur. I completely agree with that because this is what we've been trying to do all along, all my career, all the people I've been working with. So sometimes it's very difficult. It's a very difficult question, actually, Ibrahim. For you to gain the trust might not be possible. You might have to go outside and start working it out. So not necessarily what Kilian said, you will probably end up in a company in your, what you call the family business itself. I'll share experience of a couple of family offices in Saudis, what they do to make it very, very successful. So they actually make sure all the young generations go for education, proper education, good education. So now I drop out, sorry, unless they have a really great idea like Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg and so forth. So they go for proper education and they force them to go and work outside in large corporations around the globe if they want to join the family office. If they don't, it's up to them. So they have to go outside. They need to have a minimum of 10 years corporate experience. Now, some may say, but you're building them not an entrepreneur mind. But as we said, and Jazeer was mentioning, I'm a firm believer of that. You can make a change happen and you have the entrepreneurial mind wherever you are. It doesn't need to be that you have a business and only then you're going to be an entrepreneur. And the people who are running the company today, they'll be probably 20 to 30 years of experience. So they're also mandated by the board as the book of the family, the playbook they have. When the young generation completed 10 years and experience in this large corporation, they come into the company, they have a shadowing period and the transformation happens. So they take over the jobs of the previous ones and the previous ones has to let go for the success of the company to continue. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's not easy to do. And there isn't one, I would say, solution for every single problem. It has to be tested and tried in different ways. So different families are attracted differently, which was Kilian was trying to say. So not necessarily a family office will continue to be an operation business. So they may pivot to be an investment company. What do we mean by that? So they may invest in certain funds and what you call equities and other financial instruments, just to get a yield, which is coming, a recurring yield every quarter. And that's what they're happy with that because they did not have somebody they can trust to run the business, whether from the family or from outside. So it's what companies or family business wanted to do.
No, I have an answer. That's why in our family, we have a rule that every third generation son or daughter must have a degree and have 3 years to 5 years experience in the jobs, I mean, the real world, before they enter the
that's a good
business
strategy.
family.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I know that we're closing down. I just want to give you an example of how does it feel to be in a venture studio. And the example is actually Aisha here, the lady with the camera in front of her. She's a bit of a shy person. Yeah, putting her on the spot. You see, Aisha is now photo shooting or video shooting the session. Aisha actually leads on 2 companies. And she is the head of communications for another 2 companies. So she's involved in 4 companies. And that is how it feels to be in a venture studio. Do you understand me? I mean, I don't know if she likes it or not, but occasionally she goes heavy on me, but that's it. You know, you are a leader of companies, and you play different roles into different companies, and you drive, you perform your role up until that company is either successful or not. And if it is not successful, you drop that and you go for the next company. And you play whatever it takes. You do whatever it takes. The beautiful thing about venture studios is, from my perspective, no ego. You can't. You understand me? So at times, she leads on a person, but then in another company, that same person leads on her. You understand me? And if there is ego in relationships within a venture studio team, it won't work. You have to play your role within that idea and push forward. Just wanted to just highlight the fact, and thank you, Aisha, for all of what you do.
So thank you. This has been amazing. You still have a question? I want to wrap up, but go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Walid Al-Bashir. I'm the managing partner of a venture studio based in Estonia that established in 2018 on mobility and logistics. And in 2021, we established a fund based in Delaware. And my question would be, how do you align the LP interest on dual structure like this, on investing on the venture studio ventures without having to put an investment committee and stuff like that? Because for the fund, what would go directly for the invested ventures and what would go for the venture studio? Because eventually you've got more interest in the studio rather than the directly invested ventures.
Okay, brief answers from all of you, but brief.
Thank you for your question. But I guess your question is typically, is it like a venture capital model or is it a different model? Or is it just, well, how is the GPLP aligned? Am I understand your question properly? Okay. Firstly, the venture studio operates as founders. Okay, and so if you come as an LP, technically you're a co-founder. So, and what's the beauty about venture studios? We don't have management fees and there is no carry. So this is the beauty. So that means you get all the meat. Okay, so that's first. The second is the legal entity works on the fund or on the startup, depending on how you're structured your relationship with the venture studio. So if it's a venture studio as an agency, then your investment is directly going to that startup. If it's going to a fund, then your fund is an SPV to the studio, and then whatever comes out of it, we have co-founders and founders. That's how it works. It's as simple as it. So it's not a complicated model as venture studio. There is no asset manager, there is no management fees, and there is no carry. Okay,
and I suggest more on the side as a side conversation to cover this question. Yeah, can we do that? So I do want to wrap up because we want to stay on time. I want to say immense thank you to our amazing guest speakers, amazing speakers, to Dr. Adil as keynote speaker, to Dr. Jairo as a co-host of this event, and also to all of you for attending, to the amazing faculty here. And this is our last event this year. Our summer is about to start. Same for our students. I want to wish you an amazing summer ahead, and I hope to see you all back here with energy, all of us, we in good health and energy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. Dr. Jairo, we have some thank you certificates for our guests. So if you join me here to award them, please. So, Salwa.
So, Dr. Adil Alzarooni.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Adil Alzarooni.
Mr. Kilian. Mr. Maher Kaabi. Mr. Jazeer. Thank you.